Some people's eyes, the number one receiver in this draft.
In some people's eyes. The first wide receiver off the board here tonight is Quentin Johnston, wide receiver from TCU, 6'2" 3/4", 208, 9 5/8 inch hands. He didn't have a 40 or anything like that.
Pro Day did.
I know. At the combine, 134-inch broad jump, 40.5-inch vertical. At his pro day, it was clocked between 4.49 and 4.50 flat in the 40. So not all that impressive, but I think passable, right?
Especially at that size.
7.15 3-cone in his pro day, too.
Yeah. So last year in 14 games, he had 60 receptions, 1,069 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He had some rushing attempts for negative yards, so I won't mention that.
You did though.
Yeah, I know. We're going to get into the good and the bad. So it was -7. And let's get into him.
You know, super athletic guy. Obviously, his broad jump shows that 11 feet 2 inches. That's pretty impressive.
Yep.
40.5-inch vertical is pretty impressive. You know, he's a big body, strong receiver with really good speed, very athletic, some good short area and area quickness and burst. Runs a pretty good route tree as well, and can play slot. He can play on the outside. His yards after the catch, he averaged 8.9 yards after the catch per reception, second best in this class. Tracked the ball well, nice over the shoulder catches. Mm-hmm. There's some really good positives about Quentin Johnston. The negatives, and this is where I came in and was very disappointed because Quentin Johnston, for some, I mean, if you go back to like Garrett was talking about, like, Sean Tucker's my number one running back, like way too early draft.
Number 3, but yeah.
Okay, well, I took Quentin Johnston as the number one receiver off the board, big, fast receiver.
Yeah.
And boy, did I make a mistake because I bumped him down my rankings a lot because watching his film, he's very inconsistent. I mean, this is somebody who had 50 yards or less in half of his games, literally half of his games. Half of his games this year, 7 out of 14, and half of his games in his career, which is 30. 50 yards or less. And the biggest problem I have with Quentin Johnston, is his hands. The drops. He's very inconsistent. The drops were consistent. Once a game. I heard at his pro day in shorts, he was dropping footballs. Like, that's insane. So an 11.8% drop rate. He had tons on those shallow crossing routes. Like, he would drop one a game. For his size, he should win way more contested catches for his size. He only caught 35% of contested catches, 8 of 23. So it's like he's just playing way smaller than he is. And he struggled some versus press for how big he is. I mean, wasn't as much of a factor in the red zone as you want to be. I mean, is he a number one or is he Gabe Davis? But Matt, you had a comp that I thought was even better. I came away, I was like, is he Gabe Davis? You gave a comp, and I was like, that seems way more realistic.
Yeah, my comp was Brashad Perryman, who, obviously was a first-round draft pick based off of athleticism and all the measurable kind of stuff, but he just didn't turn out to be a great wide receiver. Now, I hope that Quentin Johnston is better than that, but that is kind of what I see there. He's good at a lot of things. He just is inconsistent, unfortunately. Like he's pretty good at catching a shallow cross and turning it into something. He's good with yard after the catch. He can make a guy miss in the open field and do some things like that. But for having a guy that has all these crazy athletic testing numbers, a big broad jump, a really high, 40.5-inch vertical, he doesn't play above the rim at all. That guy is feet on the ground. He's either a vertical threat or he's going to take one of these dump offs and kind of do something in the open field. But the inconsistencies in his hands is really what bothers me the most. And if he doesn't get that cleaned up, he's going to end up being one of these guys that has a lot of potential and he's always talked about and kind of bounces around a little bit because people are always willing to give him a shot based off of his athleticism, but it might just not pan out for him.
Brashad Perriman, Kevin White,
right?
All those guys,
right?
Yep. I didn't even David Bonston, Matt Jones, there's tons of guys that have been.
Matt Jones, another good comp.
Crazy physical, a lot of measurables, just doesn't pan out. I do want to give him one more positive that I saw. I thought his releases off the line were really good. His initial first step, he can make guys miss. So you see like all of the athletic traits truly are there, and so. If somebody wants to have them higher than I do, I'm not going to be mad at them for that because I can understand the process of how they got there. The problem for me is that you're a receiver. Ball skills are the most important trait.
I agree. And I rank that really highly in my wide receiver evals, and he just doesn't have them.
He just doesn't have them. He first of all, everything is a body catch. Like everything is a body catch. He does not pluck the ball ever. Right. Trying to get anything outside of his frame, it's just not happening. And so that's the tough part, because his catch radius in a sense is really big because he's tall and long, and like it should be really good.
It doesn't make sense.
But it doesn't all add up together and work the way that it should. He's
never going to make any special catches. None. Like I just don't see it. It's just not in
Where is the diamond technique?
Yeah.
Where is it? Does it exist? Does he know what it is?
Like,
has he ever bought a girl a ring? I don't know.
And the other thing that I was kind of perplexed at is much less physical than I would have expected for somebody of his size.
So here was the deal. Like, I saw this guy on tape without knowing his size originally. Like when we were doing way too early mocks and stuff like that, watch a quick thing, and I wasn't sure because he moves so quickly. He's quick in and out of breaks. I was like, how big is this guy? Like, I thought he was a tiny 5'10", like 170 pound guy.
Yeah.
Because
I just talk about plenty of those.
I know. I just couldn't tell because his movement skills, and he was not overly physical or anything like that. So I just, in my brain, had this guy being a 5'10", 170 pound guy. Yeah. And then you guys were the one that told, you're like, no, he's like 6'4", 200 something. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I was very shocked, and that it rang true when I dug in deeper. You know, he plays smaller. To Rich's point, you said it. He plays a small game for a big body guy, and it just that never sits well with me. I don't know.
I'll have zero shares.
I'm not either,
in Dynasty, because he'll get the draft capital that will entice the Dynasty player. And for me, I would just rather go a completely different route. There's probably 4 to 5 more receivers that I would rather gamble on their upside because I like their hands better. I like the tight ends. I feel like I would take more than them. I was like messing around with my rookie rankings today a little bit. They're up on dynastynerds.com. Very fluid to the NFL draft. And I was just, I kept bumping Johnston down, and I had to stop at one point going, God, I mean, he's going to get the capital, he's going to get a chance. And maybe somebody can clean some of this up. But the hardest thing to clean up for a receiver is hands.
Like, I mean, is he like a Cordell Patterson type of guy who, is drafted off all this stuff and he just never finds a position because he's just not that, you know what I mean? Like he's good with the ball in his hands, but
faster Laviska Shenault.
Getting the ball in his hands is a hard thing to do,
remember people slammed us. We're like, dude, Laviska Shenault is not a fantasy dynasty asset. And people are like, no, you're wrong. And we're like, no, it's not it. And he didn't turn out either. Those guys we're trying to find dynasty fantasy football assets. That's what we watch this film for. We're not watching it to be NFL scouts. You guys weren't here last week, but the same thing, like when we talked about Michael Mayer and where we had him like our 4th or 5th tight end, which, for most people, he's their number 1 tight end. And we said, like, for NFL team, yeah, easily you could put him as number 1 tight end. It's not a problem. But from a dynasty fantasy football aspect, to gather points, like, where can we find that? That's what we're hunting for. That's how we've made a name for ourselves, is we're digging for fantasy points. And for Quentin Johnston, I'm not seeing the consistency enough.
Get out the pan, Rich.
Yeah,
pan for gold.
Pan
for gold.
I'm shifting. I'm sifting.
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 Yeah, for that dynasty gold, man.
Sniffing.
That's it. I mean, this is dynasty. So when you make that, when you're looking for that dopamine hit on your rookie draft, when you're looking for that asset to get on your team for the next 5 to 7 years.
You're really on that dopamine hit tonight, aren't you?
Right? It is.
You're wanting it.
Yeah, I get in these groups. And, like, when you find that player, it's such an important part in these rookie drafts. It's why you trade for these picks. It's why, and for most people, they only have 1 pick in the first round. For most, if you're me, I don't have barely any. But for most people,
on average,
they have 1 pick. And it's why, like, you end up with a guy like this. If you miss, it's like you're missing on 5 to 7 years of production that you want to put into your starting lineup.
And just to emphasize the point from earlier, you look at a lot of the best receivers in the NFL right now. Some of them are freaky athletes. So I'm not saying you can't be a freaky athlete and be a good wide receiver. I'm not saying that. But almost unilaterally, they have amazing ball skills. Yeah. Almost like Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, like all of these guys.
Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs.
You can go on and
AJ
on and
Brown.
on.
You think that dude has some ball skills?
Yeah,
I mean,
like all of them have incredible, just
contested catch, ball,
pluck it out of the air.
The NFL
spectacular catch.
That's the NFL game. There are going to be defenders in your hip pocket, no matter what, and he just doesn't make plays with defenders.
I will say,
closing
like,
in and-
I feel like
and-
TCU never really put him in the position to make those type of plays, to be honest. Like,
In a
I
sense,
thought-
I don't know if that was TCU or Max Dugan or what.
I just
but-
thought they did a poor job of using him, to be honest. And I mean, I feel similar to you guys right now. I haven't even ranked or done the score for Nathaniel Dell, Zay Flowers, Keyshawn Butte, or Josh Downs, and like he's still like wide receiver 5, just in terms of like tape grade.
He's 5 for me, and I still have to do Hyatt, Flowers, and Downs. I haven't done any of those guys, and he's 5 for me.
He's
right
like
now.
right on the borderline cutoff of like this. Like we were talking earlier, Garrett and I were saying how like in our nerd score, 73 is kind of like just going back looking at the past classes. That's like kind of the cutoff point, and he's like right there.
For you
For
and
me.
for me, he's at a 72.5.
Right.
See,
So-
and I understand what you're saying because like definitely in college, like you have to take the quarterback into account, right?
Yeah,
like I thought like Marvin Mims, who we're talking about next, like hit the quarterback at Oklahoma. I don't even know who that was. Like I don't think he did Marvin Mims any favors whatsoever. I don't even know who that was. Like
last year's Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that dude did Marvin Mims any favors whatsoever. But the problem with Quentin Johnston is like these drops, most of them are on these short, shallow, like crossing routes right in his hands.
Yeah.
Like
it's definitely like
and his pro day, the news coming out of his pro day of him just dropping balls in his shorts too, like that's just unacceptable for
It's an
me.
issue.
It doesn't get better. And NFL coaches aren't gonna like not even NFL coaches. NFL quarterbacks are not going to trust you and they're not going to throw you the football. Definitely when you're a rookie. If you're dropping balls, they're going to stop throwing you the football.
Greg
it's
Little.
that simple.
ever have.
Greg Little,
Yeah.
big body, strong receiver, 2nd round draft pick, couldn't catch a football. And you guys were mentioning ball skills. For quarterbacks, I don't care how far they throw it. I want to be very smart. I want to be very accurate. For running backs, I want to have very good vision. I want to be fast, right? I want to have loose hips. For receivers, I want to have good ball skills, and I want to be very good route runners. Those are the two. Because if you're a really good route runner, it does not matter how fast you are because you can get open. If you're going to get open and get separation, you're going to get the ball. It's why I love Devontae Smith so much. It's why I love Amari Cooper so much. Like I love Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. These guys are premier route runners.
Quarterback's best friend.
Same thing. When Hunter Renfrow was a wide receiver 1, guess what? Hunter Renfrow is a premier route runner, and that gets open. You get separation. You get thrown the football. You accumulate fantasy football
You
points.
get into defenders' bodies and make them make a choice. You know what I mean? That's where you win. That's leverage, at the wide receiver position. And some guys know it. Some guys are terrible at it.
And just to tie a bow on this, if you want to take a chance on him, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I understand why, but just buyer beware. There's a lot of risk here. And that's what we're trying to do is we're just trying to tell you where the red flags are. You can go ahead and draft him.
Yeah.
And he'll probably have at least decent draft capital, and he's got size and speed. Those are traditionally things that are good, but there's a lot of red flags.
And
I would just trade this pick.
and character, great character from what I hear as well. Like I think he was military parents or something like that. So I mean, he's coachable guy.
Yeah.
And so there's
No
always,
effort concerns, no
Right.
nothing like that.
Right. So there's a chance that he can get this figured out and put in the extra work and get better. I'm just not going to take a chance on that kind of wide receiver.
Yeah, no dig on his personal. Like,
Falls
it's
out
just,
of the second
it's
round
a
or
hands.
first round.
Right.
Do you think he falls out
Of the
first
NFL
round?
draft,
Yeah.
or I've heard rumor because you remember a couple months ago, we're hearing a lot of rumors of top 10. Then all of a sudden he was more 10 to 20. Now he's like back end of the first round in a lot of mocks that I'm seeing, and I've even heard somebody quoted an anonymous GM, and they said it's funny because like everyone keeps projecting 4 or 5 receivers in the first round, like we've seen a lot in the past few years.
I heard one.
And he said right now there's one.
It's
Yeah.
Jackson
Who was
Smith and
that?
Jigba.
Yeah.
NFL.com guy, right?
I think so. There was an anonymous GM.
I saw the same
that
report.
said it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then the same report also said there's 2 names that everybody's lower on that the NFL circle's higher on, and that's Cedric Tillman and Mingo.
Okay, I
I
can
think
see
there's
that.
the same report,
And
as well.
it's because of their size, and this is a class that's desperately needing it.
And listen, in today's NFL, 2 receivers can be successful on every team for dynasty fantasy football purposes, and that's the way the NFL is going. So some of these guys are going to hit. And Quentin Johnston has that prototypical
There's a T in there, by the
size.
way.
Johnston, yeah, to get in there. So yeah, he is definitely a risk reward guy, but I'm with Matt. Like I'm not taking that.
Rich said earlier, the only problem with Quentin Johnston is, and I wanted to just jump
Yeah.
in so
I know, you said it so many times.
Sorry, Quentin Johnston.
All right, so
Don't worry about how I talk. Okay.
If you've been listening this long, people don't care anymore.
exactly.